welcome back to Rugby Pod on Spotify. I'm Andy Roper. Jim and Goodey are with me as usual. We're going to dissect all the latest Premiership action, look ahead to the Champions Cup semi-finals, and chat about some of Gatlin's options ahead of the Lions squad announcement next week. Plus, Goodey's got plenty to say about the RFU's post-Six Nations review. And we've got Newcastle's new signing, Carl Fearns, on the show to explain why he's finally back in the Premiership and what French rugby's really like.
And what happened with Henson, basically. Let's get that out of the way.
Did he feel Henson in, and how bad French rugby? Let's discuss.
Good week, though?
Yeah, not bad, Jim. I'm looking at you, and I'm seeing a smile. I'm seeing happiness this week. You're either up or you're down. And I'm saying, like, you could be happy this week. The pubs are open in Scotland, aren't they, today?
Today being Monday, and the gyms. Now, you make me sound like I am either end of the spectrum. And I know that is a condition. I'm not, but I definitely have that. I definitely have a highs and lows. That's how I am. I wear my heart on my sleeve, lads. Last week I was a bit down. Not a lot else has happened since then, really. I'll be honest with you. I did the big one on Friday, Edinburgh versus Zebre. I've had my lid cut, and it looks ridiculously good. I mean, let's put it down to Suns. Let's put it down to not being stressed. Let's put it down to not being troubled. My lid has come back, and you talk about John Cooney. Does it look like John Cooney's? Yes or no, lads? Go.
Tip the head down. Let me see.
Oh,
Jesus.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just like John Cooney. Yeah.
From straight on, does it look like Cooney? Yes or no? Go.
Not quite, but not bad. It's looking good, mate.
I'll take it. So I went to the gym today. Weird. So Saturday, I'm at home. And anyone who follows me on social will be thinking, why is Jim Hamilton tweeting a load of weird shit at 10:30, 11:30, 1 o'clock in the morning on Sunday morning? Lads, I was absolutely ball-bagged responsibly. Who sits at home
Were you on the gins
drinking?
Again?
I was on the gins. Who sits at home drinking 12 gin and tonics responsibly, watching YouTube videos, singing to the Greatest Showman? Anyone would think that a weird human would do that. And they're right. That was me. That was me on Saturday night, absolutely ball-bagged, on my own, watching Greatest Showman clips and behind-the-scenes stuff. That is how sad my life has become, lads. So this week can't have gone quick enough, I'll be honest, with the pubs opening.
Well, let's talk about it, because what happens in your house, right? Because you do this, it started to become a regular theme, hasn't it? I get the odd video of you, the odd FaceTime call when you're a few deep on a gin and tonic, and I'm like, where's Beck? It's what does she do? Because you can go down on social media and YouTube, you can actually spend hours, can't you, just flicking through videos and going, watching a little snippet of this one, then flicking onto the next one. You're there with a few G&Ts down you. Is Beck just looking at you going, it's time for bed, or I'm going to bed, you sleep in the spare room? What's happening?
She's in bed till 10:30. She knows the storm's coming at 5:30, 6 in the morning. But Sunday morning was my warning to wake up. And you know that meme that goes around, not even the meme, if you're WWF or WWE fans, whatever it's called, when Undertaker just sits straight out of his coffin when he gets up to fight. That was me Sunday morning at 5:30 when it's my time to get up in the morning. So I've gone to bed at 1:30, 15 deep, absolutely ball-bagged responsibly. Boom.
Did you not stay up and watch the UFC? Did you not stay up and watch the UFC?
I couldn't. My eyes rang out my head. And then it was a beach day on Sunday, so I knew I had to be full-on dad. But to be fair, Saturday was good. Saturday night was good. Friday night weren't great. Sunday at the beach all day, just cooking barbecues, just putting it on Instagram, seeing what the engagement is. Lads, I've had a hell of a weekend, I'll be honest.
I could tell you're happy. And you mentioned the gym, Jim. I've done my back or my shoulder or something. I was doing some shoulder press today.
No, that's a tricep. But that movement you've just done is a tricep. That's not a shoulder. Yeah, that one there. That's a shoulder.
That one there. Anyway, 5 sets of 10 on the old shoulder press. 42 kilo dumbbells in each hand. Fucking back's got me.
42 kg dumbbell in between your legs to keep you on the floor. That's where that dumbbell comes in.
Yeah, done me back. And you talk about your weekend. We went to the farm on Sunday. I was on BT Sport on Saturday with Lawrence. If there's ever an alpha male, it is that gentleman right there.
I'm happy to be a lesser man than him. I'll be honest. I am happy to be a lesser man than Lawrence.
Actually really enjoy working with him, which was fun. And then Sunday, took the kids to the farm to feed some sheep and some goats and all this stuff. And, you're walking around, and Jim, you talk about this a lot. You walk around Edinburgh and everyone's like, Jim, you're a legend and all that stuff.
Hero, how nice, probably more so, but yeah.
Yeah. How nice is it? People come up to you and go, Goodey, love the pod. How you doing? Just that's all you need, right? And you're like, oh, nice to see you, mate. How you doing? And it makes you feel good. One bloke at the farm on Sunday walked over. He's like, Goodey, where's Jim? I'm like, well,
fair question.
He lives in Scotland, mate. So he's not down in Buckinghamshire at the farm. He goes, oh, I love the pod. Is this the nanny? Points at the missus. Is this the nanny? My missus just looks at him. Like,
kind of.
Like, well, she does a lot of work in that kind of genre to our kids, but it's not the nanny. And my missus just looks, who's this? My missus just looks at me and goes, who the hell's this? I said, Carolyn, I've got no idea who he is. I think he's just, I said, who are you, mate? He's like, oh, Steve. He called himself Steve. And then he goes, oh, is this the twins then? Is this the twins? I'm like, well, is he playing the fucking obvious game or what? Two blonde-haired, blue-eyed, 3-year-old girls that look exactly the same. Yes, mate, it is the twins. It is the twins. And I think he'd had a couple of beers before he came to the farm. So, but it's nice, isn't it, when people say that sort of stuff? But my missus ain't happy with the pod today because
who gets steaming before going to a farm? Me probably. Next time I go.
But yeah, I think the missus isn't happy with the pod because people think I talk about the nanny more than I talk about her. So there we go.
Well, before we get into the Premiership chat, the RFU released the findings of their review into England's Six Nations after the pod went out last week. What would you guys make of it? I know you had plenty to say about it on Twitter, Goodey.
Well, let me go first. I'll give you one line, and I love this word, and it makes me sound really regal. Not smoking regal, just regal. He's still in situ. That's the right line, isn't it? Eddie Jones is still in situ for the foreseeable. That quote me, lads. Quote me on that.
Well, I mean, that's the obvious statement, Jim, and he is.
Okay, well, fair enough. Yeah,
he was never going to get sacked, was he? Let's be honest. With the credit in the bank from that we still harping on about, where he got to the 2019 World Cup final, and the record that he has, and the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic, who knows what the ins and outs are of his contract to get him out of his contract before the end? Can the RFU afford it? Is there anyone else? Everything was saying that Eddie Jones is never going to get sacked, but I was really disappointed with it, to be honest. The review.
Why?
I mean, the first thing they said was the Six Nations was suboptimal. Suboptimal? I mean, if optimal's winning the Six Nations, suboptimal, okay, is it finishing second? It was abysmal. We finished fifth, our worst ever Six Nations.
Fifth's all right. Fifth's all right. It ain't that bad.
They called it suboptimal. And basically, to me, it just read like a list of excuses from everything to do with the initial selection. Some players hadn't played enough, but lots of players had played too much. Our COVID bubble was way more taxing on the players than the rest of the countries. Okay, France went for some ruffles, so rule out the French. Don't worry about the Italians, but the Scots, the Welsh, and the Irish, they had pretty secure bubbles as well. Our breakdown in discipline wasn't good. We must do more leg weights.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm no philosopher, you know what I mean, or a pharmacist, but I'm not working out of that transfers. But who am I to judge? Yeah, I mean that's. Yeah. And who quoted that? Who said that? Is that just like the overall kind of review that's been done, or can we put Eddie Jones' name to that quote?
Well, I greatly believe that Eddie Jones wrote this review himself, to be honest, because not once does any fingers get pointed at Eddie Jones. Every excuse that's come out with, and every reason behind the poor Six Nations is all down to Eddie Jones, whether it be picking the wrong players who haven't played too much, picking players that have played too much, breakdown in discipline, missing a couple of coaches, hiring the coaches that he did coach. Sorry, hiring the coaches that were part of the group. Talking about the Premiership, he hasn't got a relationship with some of the DORs in the Premiership, doesn't speak to a few of them. I can guarantee that for a fact. And I'm just sat there, everything points at Eddie Jones. Just Eddie, put your hand up and go, it wasn't good enough for me. I got these things wrong. There's never a finger pointing at him. So everything's come from the CEO, Bill Sweeney, who's made all the quotes. But to me, it was just a list of excuses that, quite frankly, it raises more questions than answers. And it was, from an England fan reading it, I'm just like, that's embarrassing, some of it. It's cringeworthy, the way it was written. And effectively, it seems like Eddie Jones was absolved of any responsibility or blame, which when you're the top dog and you're making all these decisions, it's basically the can, stops with you. And And I just
does that mean you wanted? Does that mean you wanted him out, Goody? Like,
no,
so
I didn't want him out. There's no one out unless you're going to get Scott Robertson, or you go and get Rob Baxter. For me, they're the only two people, and I'm trying to think outside the box of other people. To me, they're the only two people that would excite and warrant a change right now, because we are 2 years out from the World Cup. But then the argument with South Africa, they changed their coach 2 weeks before they changed their coach 2 years before the 2019 World Cup and put Rasmus in charge, and look what happened. So, Rob Baxter doesn't want the job yet. If he does want it in the future, great. He doesn't want it yet. He's on this project at Exeter. He's very comfy where he is. He probably wants it. If he wants the England job, it will be more of a natural progression to an end of a World Cup cycle. So potentially after the next World Cup. But unless the RFU were going to go and get the spuds out and go and get Scott Robertson or someone like that, he was never going to get sacked. And I'm not advocating Eddie should have got the sack. Eddie needs to make massive changes within himself, how he handles the media, how he, doesn't react with players playing well in the Premiership and pick those players. He's bagged the Premiership and said, playing well in the Premiership doesn't equate to being, your form's going to translate into international rugby.
That's the thing.
He goes and watches the Premiership games, but I just don't understand. A lot of the time, he's got his comfy little group. And some serious questions. No one holds him to task. I believe someone needs to be sat above Eddie Jones with rugby IQ to make Eddie report to him, because at the minute he's reporting to a CEO, which, Bill Sweeney could be a very, very good CEO. I'm sure he is, but he's got no rugby IQ in terms of playing the game, understanding what winning looks like in a rugby environment, international level, succession planning, all the things you want as a Six Nations coach and an England coach. He's got no one to report to that can challenge him.
You need someone with rugby IQ. And now, I'm not being ageist, but if you've got an old fogey, I don't know how old Bill Sweeney is, or someone that's retired 10, 15 years ago. Look at Jason Leonard, for example. Now, legend of a player. He's obviously involved in the British and Irish Lions as well. He's been president of the RFU. But even someone like Jason wouldn't be that unless he's watching the games, reviewing the games, speaking to coaches, analysing matches. Even I find it difficult now, and I watch nearly all the games, and I find it difficult trying to pick out the nuances and pick out who is really on form, the work off the ball, all these things, which would effectively mean that you're the best player in your position and should play for England. So I don't even know, if you've got a CEO or you've got someone like, I don't know, even Martin Johnson now, if he's not watched the game, obviously he managed the England team when he retired. Johnny Wilkinson, chatting to Johnny, he doesn't watch loads of rugby. So who could you put in above Eddie, like in terms of that could challenge him and say, you need to look at Marcus Smith, because Marcus Smith does that. They'll have a superficial opinion, won't they? Like and everyone can have a superficial opinion. Bill Sweeney obviously listens to the rugby pod. So what we say, we're convincing him. Convincing him that Sam Simmons or Don Armand back in the day should have been playing for England, or, Alex Don Brandt, when he was playing really well, should be playing for England, or, why is Danny Kerr not playing, or George Ford shouldn't be playing 10. And you could go on. But if Eddie Jones is this super intelligent guy in rugby, which he is clearly, then I don't know how you can challenge him when there is no one in that position that is arguably qualified.
Yeah, the only two people I could really think of that are in and around the area at the minute that they could put someone in there is Conor O'Shea, who's working at the RFU, and he understands environments, winning environments. He understands coaching to a high level. He's got so much experience both playing the game but also coaching at the top level, winning things and understanding what it takes to win, and knowing a lot of the Premiership and how it runs, etc. So he'd be a perfect foil. Or I know Nigel Melville's back in the mix as well with a role there. So there's got to be someone.
I don't know. No, I like Nigel.
I'm not talking. I'm just talking about people that are there now. So, Conor O'Shea is the obvious one. But you need someone in between Eddie Jones and Bill Sweeney, who has rugby IQ that can hold Eddie accountable.
Well, the Lions squad is due to be announced next Thursday. There's been loads of debate online, but one that's really causing a stir is the number 10 position. You've got Finn Russell, Biggar, Sexton and Farrell. Assuming that he only takes 3 of those, who gets left behind?
I watched the Leicester Northampton game on Saturday and watched friend of the show, well, his wife's friend of the show, Dan Bigaroo, rock up and play the way that he played. And we all know that I'm a big fan of his. And then I'm thinking, right, so the squad gets announced on the 6th of May, Thursday, the 6th of May. The lads are all being told now via email whether they're in the mix or whatever. I think there's going to be like a big omission potentially. And I hope I'm wrong in what I say, but I could see, it's a headline, lads. I can see Finn Russell not being picked. I can see it. I don't want to see it, and I might be completely wrong. And I say that because of how well Dan Biggar's played. So he's, in my opinion, you could arguably say front runner. 6 Nations champions, right? Fit as a fiddle, hard as nails, unbelievable kicking game, unbelievable tackler, fits in the game plan that you're going to need to beat South Africa. A good lad, not on social, not that that matters. Maybe it does. So he's in, right? And then you've got Faz, who will go as a 10-12, definitely, regardless of what people think. Owen Farrell's one of the best players in the world. You know, you just seen him at the weekend against Ealing. He was unbelievable.
You still trying to be friends with him, Jim, again?
Well, it's never going to happen. But if I get him as captain, maybe. But Faz is definitely going to go. So then that leaves, obviously, Sexton or Finn. Now, you know, Sexton's, I don't want to be horrible. Sexton obviously ain't going to play in all the games, is he? He's just not robust enough to do that. And however these games look. But he's a player that if it was a test match, you could get him right for a test match. The way that you'd want to play against South Africa. I was just thinking, the way that, like Finn didn't have an amazing 6 Nations. And let's get this right. I want Finn to go. I think he should go. But I'm reading into the mind of my mentor and my mate. And I think that there'll be a couple of big headline stories. And I think around what would be a bigger headline, Goody? Sexton not going or Finn not going? What would you say?
I'd say the bigger headline will be Sexton not going. And I think that's the way it will go.
What, you don't think Sexton will, you think Finn will go?
I think when you're looking at it, and take this weekend, for example, I might be proven wrong. I read some comments from Leo Cullen, a good friend of ours, who's obviously Leinster head coach, one of the best, worst looking blokes you've ever seen play rugby. And he said he doesn't know whether Sexton's going to be available for this weekend. He's had some more concussion issues and all that stuff. So that leaves a big question mark over his head. You know, you come into the Champions Cup semi-finals this weekend and start the week, whether it's just a bit of propaganda or whatever it is, they don't know whether Sexton's going to be fit. So, the big thing, Farrell's playing in the Champo, didn't have a good 6 Nations, but Farrell is going to get picked on reputation, on the fact that he can cover 10 and 12. So I think he's in. When people are looking at it going, on form, it should be, you should have Finn Russell, you should have Dan Biggar. If you're taking 3, it's then got to be a heads up between Sexton and Farrell, because the question marks around Sexton, his injuries, and Farrell isn't playing that well. But we all know Farrell is a test match animal, so he will go. And then I think Biggar is playing unbelievably well. I'm a massive fan of him. Pretty sure I put him in my Lions 15 at 10 as well for the starting test match team, because I love him as a player. And then I'm a believer in, if you've got 2 players of a Farrell and a Biggar, you need a point of difference with someone else. So you need someone, a Finn Russell, that can change you a game. Because let's be honest, if you're starting Biggar, or if you're starting Farrell at 10, or even Sexton at 10 in a test match, and it's going well, you don't need to change your 10. 10's a position that you change in a reaction to the game. So if you're getting humped and you've got Finn on the bench, or you're losing by 10, or you need some magic, you bring Finn on. If you're winning by 10 and things are comfortable, you don't need to change it. You don't change your 10. You don't need to change your fly half. So I think you need someone with a point of difference. I think Finn Russell should go. I think Biggar should go. I think Sexton should go. I think Farrell shouldn't go. No, I'm joking. No, I think Sexton may miss out just purely on the fact of, he has had injuries, and on a tour where there's going to be bubbles and there's going to be, you're going to need durable players. You either take 4 10s, which you don't need, or do you consider Farrell just as a 12, and then you can take them all. But someone's missing out, and I've got a feeling it'll be Sexton.
Should we have a look at the Premiership now? Bristol next to the hell of a game to kick off the weekend.
Oh, do you not want to talk about Edinburgh Zebra, no?
No, Jim.
Can we go through that? No, you don't want to talk about that?
You summed it up, Jim, didn't you?
What?
A pretty bleak Friday, I think you called it.
Oh, did I say that? Oh, don't hold me to that. No, you can quote me. No, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, my word. What a game. To be fair, I don't know who said it. Maybe someone on BT Sports said it. Let's just say Lawrence Delladio said it, because he's a legend.
He wasn't on the game, by the way.
Yeah, I know, but in general, the Prem, mate, the standard's unbelievable. And that game was class, like really, really good. I mean, extra, like you said, Goody, I've struggled a little bit this season in terms of performances. And I think we spoke about before. I can't remember who said who was going to win, but you said extra under more pressure going into this game because Bristol's at the top of the league. And there you go, mate. Answered it.
I think the ironic thing around it, obviously, Exeter champions, Bristol, the kind of new kids on the block trying to take over that mantle, and really challenge us sitting top of the league. Bristol could lose that game. And kind of the weird thing around it is, I reckon secretly Pat Lam is okay with losing the game. And you never want to say, I'm happy to lose. But the fact that they lost to Exeter, the champion team, the fact that they're missing Randraja, they were missing Callum Sheedy, they were missing now Lango on the wing. A lot of their firepower, Harry Randall wasn't there as well, Nathan Hughes. There was a number of players that weren't playing, and they still at times went toe-to-toe with Exeter. And Exeter were back to, they had 2 weeks ago, they lost to Leinster, so there was a bit of pain in their camp. They know they're under pressure for that second position. So it was a must-win game for them. Jack Noel came back, was outstanding. They were fully loaded, Exeter. So it was a case of, Pat Lam, it's a bit of a reality check because they were flying in the Premiership, so far clear. They know they've got a home semi-final pretty much wrapped up. Okay, so what it does do, and we've all been there in teams, Jim, when you are flying, and a loss like that really sharpens the mind for Bristol and makes them look at the standards again, makes them look at how they're going to win when it comes to their season. Now is all about semi-final and potentially final. That's all that matters. So it's how do you now build to those two games with the squad you've got? Only Pat Lam will know when those players will come back into fitness to integrate them back in, just to get to that 2-game end of season, the big dance, semi-final at home, final hopefully for them, and they're probably going to have to beat Exeter to win it. So Exeter looked good, didn't they? Jack Noel back to his best. Sam Simmons, we bang on about him a lot because he's a worldie of a player. The speed, the power, the pace, he had everything. O'Flaherty played well again. And Exeter looked back to being the Exeter that we all know and saw last year do the double. Johnny Hill spiralling 150 metres.
That was ridiculous. I didn't know whether we were going to talk about that because he's boycotted us. And this nipple twister or whatever it's called, rib tickler, whatever his beer's called, or cider's called, if he don't come on, if he boycotts us again, right, and now we're talking about his kick, I'm going to say that stuff tastes like toilet. So he's got a choice now. I'll say it, that kick was unbelievable. Unbelievable. Your rib tickler tastes amazing. That's the last time I'm going to say. If you boycott us again, we're taking it down.
Goody, you were in Brentford, weren't you, for Quinn's late win over London Irish?
I was. Bit of niggle. Bit of
Marla's. I mean, he turns up looking like Ali G from what I've seen on social. He's going, my mate Uso, Blair Cowan, he's picking him up. Blair Cowan can't throw his long locks and do the backwards head, but he's had to take it like a good one, isn't he? That's all I'm seeing about that game is just a little bit of niggle. Yeah, a little bit of niggle.
Joe Marler throughout the game was a real noise. I think he told Matt Carley he doesn't know what the fuck he's on about. And they were his words because we heard it down the cans.
Can't argue. I'm not specifically on Matt Carley. If he's talking about referees as a whole, then I don't want to be the one that argues with him on that point.
But there was a bit of niggle. Marler was being a bit passionate at the time, tripping people. But Quinn's stayed in the fight. Obviously Esther Hazen got sent off for the elbow to the face of Curtis Rona. And it was handbags basically. I think started by Simmons, the second row, and going and pinning Blair Cowan down. Like, he looks like a fake tough guy, Simmons, doesn't he?
I don't know what a fake tough guy is these days. Just someone who grabs people hard and looks angry, knowing that
nothing can
happen. That you ain't getting uppercutted by Deeks. Like, you just know that ain't happening.
But Irish will be kicking themselves, really. They get ahead, scored a wonderful try after Esterhuizen got sent off. Quins moved Caden Murley, the left winger. He defended off the top of the line out in the back. So they came back down the short side. Danny Kerr was exposing his own. Real bit of rugby noise there. So they found the weak link because of the red card, which was pretty clever. They go ahead. They have more opportunities. They had a couple of penalties, Irish, to kick it goal to take the score further ahead. And they just couldn't close out the game. And fair play to Quins. They stayed in the fight. Marcus Smith, absolute magic in his boots when he needs it. Stepped inside about 17 defenders to score the winner. But they shouldn't have had that opportunity, really. It was Irish and a bit of lack of composure and game understanding, really.
Who was Marcus Smith cheering to after he scored the try?
Mate, it's interesting, actually. So 2 tries. So Mike Brown scores in the first half, angry as you like, starts screaming at an empty stand. And then Marcus Smith he scores the winner. And when you score the winner like that...
They were screaming at Eddie Jones.
Yeah, probably. But when you score the winner like that, the emotion is huge, right? And so it probably feels like there's 4,000, 10,000, however many thousand people in that stadium. But there was literally a few physios, a couple of commentators, and that was about it. So he was excited, bless him. But he's a quality player, Marcus Smith. He's said it now. He's got real maturity. He's got the skill set of a really exciting young 10 who, you look at him and there's other 10s would be envious of his overall skill set. But a lot of it now is married up with some real game understandings and game control. And he's going to be an England player, hopefully in the summer, if England get to play on tour or have the games in England, because his time is now to get an England cap, I think.
It'll be huge for the top 6. Obviously, Quins now 4th on 54 points. Northampton, who were class at the weekend against Leicester. Yeah. Imagine London Irish getting into Europe. That's a successful season for them, isn't it? Yeah. Making top 6 for sure.
And speaking to them before the game, because if they'd have beaten Irish, they'd have closed the gap. So if Irish had have beaten Quins, they'd have closed the gap and pushed towards the top 4. But speaking to some of them, they were like, "Oh, we've got loads of players missing." You think of Irish, right? They've achieved what they've achieved this year. Sean O'Brien hardly played for them. Coleman hardly played for them. Naholo hardly played for them. So they've got a lot of their big wage cap not playing. So Kobe Kepu left halfway through the season, where they've spent a lot of money. Loads of their salary cap haven't been playing, and they've done exceptionally well, Irish, to get to where they got to. So they're thinking top 6. It'd be great for them in their stadium. The stadium's wonderful, by the way. Really is an unbelievable place to play. And
could have been me. Could have,
Jim.
Could have. 2 years deal. Probably. They probably would have signed me. Yeah, no, they probably would have signed me for another 2 years, wouldn't they? So 4 years there.
Definitely. So it'd be great for Irish to be in the Champions Cup next year. I'm hearing rumours actually that the Champions Cup might be top 8, as opposed to the regular top 6.
All this drama. Like I watched Simon Halliday, friend of the show, talking about Europe. He went on BT to speak about it, thinking, right, we've got headline news here. He gave me nothing.
He gave you the fact that the deal's been struck by the 3 leagues for the next 8 years or 10 years. Or
who's bothered? Am I bothered? Who's bothered about that?
But we know it's there now. We know it's in place. We just don't know how it's going to look. Well, although the top 16, the last 16 is going to be key, isn't it?
Yeah, you could see that was the only thing he gave.
Yeah, I reckon they might extend it to 24 teams. Here's just a throwaway comment. 24 teams. So 8, 8 and 8. Did you get that, Jim? 8 from the Prem.
Well, I imagine that. Yeah. 8 from the Pro. What are you going to say? Go on, give me a number.
Well, Pro 16, 22.
Yeah, I reckon 16, yeah.
8, 8, 8. And then you have 2 leagues of 12 that play across each other or something. Somehow you work it out.
I hate that. I hate the crossover. No, don't do it.
Or just have games within your own league of 12 then. You draw leagues. You have games within your own league. And then top 16. The last 16 I thought was brilliant because it got rid of loads of dead rubbers.
We can't do rubbers. We can't do the crossover. Like, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, eat out, help out, don't help out, see him. There's enough confusion in my life. I don't need that. Even the Pro 14, the crossovers and that, I just can't get old school, mate. Old school, champions, relegation, take out the top 4 as well. I don't like that. Anyway, that's a story for another day.
While we're in the boardroom, the Prem clubs are meeting today regarding the Lions player release.
Come
from that.
That they can
How
go?
much? How much? how much they can go. It's one of them, isn't it? There's we spoke about it the other week, the San Francisco agreement.
Francisco. Hey, talking of that, your mate's gone. Darren Childs, he would have been involved in that chat. Where's he gone?
Oh, he's
when it matters.
Well, no, he's moved to be part of CVC.
Amen.
And yeah, so his background obviously is a fair bit of television. Felt like the right time to move. He wanted to sort of be part of the CVC setup. So yeah, good luck to him. I'm sure
he wanted some positivity, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be heavily involved in the media side of Premiership rugby for a while to come yet. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Back on the pitch then, Northampton won the East Midlands derby, didn't they?
Very good game. That enjoyed it. Huge game for Leicester. The build-up, everything that they were saying. Youngsy, Genji, biggest game. You should see this place full at Welford Road. And probably you could say, arguably, that this is the only time in a long time for Leicester that it was actually a game. I don't know what the recent results in past years have been, but in terms of Leicester being a decent team, they can actually front up physically now, really good scrum, back row is really physical, score some good tries. They've got a bit of about them again. But Northampton, fair play, play, big fella. Sam Vesti, pick your nose and eat it, has come good. Some really good English players. Me and Goodey, actually, we like this game that much. We actually spoke about it on the phone. That's how much we love our ruggers.
We dissected it with an open cloth, didn't we, Jim?
Yeah, we did. Bigger, very good. Alex Mitchell, good until he went off injured. Hopefully that's not too bad. I thought the back row, Lewis Ludlam and Tom Wood especially, I thought were fantastic. Ribbons was class as well, and I thought it was a brilliant game. Like, I remember playing against Northampton, for the second team, but I was captain, so it was a big deal. For Leicester, they were massive. And you know what? In recent years, the Sarries Northampton game has been a derby, even though obviously the East Midland derby with Leicester and Northampton. But fair play to Northampton, could have went either way. Leicester's discipline. So I said it before.
Oh, mate, why being horrible?
I know Deeks called me out, but yeah, it's a good game. Austin spoke about it on comms around George Ford. Seems like he's having to play in a structured framework under Borthwick, and again, Austin knows more about rugby than I do, especially back play. Is that he doesn't look as comfortable. George Ford's a kind of feel it kind of player, throwing balls into space, kicking into space off the cuff, but he struggled a little bit in that role. And you talk about the Lions tour. Bigger versus Ford, that kind of side narrative.
Not even a question, mate. Not even a question.
Yeah.
I said it the other week. But who's saying George Ford should be on the Lions tour? Look at the Six Nations. Dan Bigger, phenomenal. Man of the match. People have asked the question. We've just had a debate earlier around the 4 fly-offs that are in the mix, and George Ford wasn't even mentioned. But yeah, it's intercept, you're right. Hutchinson, nice little touch there. Defensive read. But George Ford's a wonderful player on the front foot. The big question marks always come around him managing a game when his pack isn't dominating. I get Austin's point completely. He is a field player, but sometimes you've got to feel the game, and you can't just chuck it into space and hope someone's there, because that's when I've thrown thousands of intercepts in my time. That's where you should have been. I'll never forget, actually, at training, Rob Kafer used to throw these pies out. Not literal pies, but pies. And they'd be like, that's where I want you. But hold on, there was 3 defenders there. The hole's there. He's like, no, that's where I want you. So there's a balance between that. Leicester's still in the mix for top 6, but Northampton really pushing on, trying to stay in that top 4 fight. They had to win it after Harlequins got a last-minute win just before their kickoff to stay in that top 4 fight, because obviously now it's 5 teams fighting out for 4 places in the playoffs.
I've just had a funny thought, a story that I'd like to share, because I was literally laughing when you mentioned pies. Rod Kafer, Leicester. I had this epiphany, all right, about me being at Leicester back in the days, driving around in my Vauxhall Astra Expression that cost me 400 quid, and I was driving back from Leicester to Coventry down the M69. Before you get there, there's obviously buses and bus stops or whatever, and people going into town. So you've got to drive effectively from the training ground into Leicester City Centre, but then peel back off onto the M69. Some young lad, when I'm driving the Vauxhall Astra Expressions, hit the car with an egg. Absolutely livid, right? Livid. All over the windscreen. So I've said to my mate Kovskin, Thursday night, these obviously young lads are throwing eggs at cars and whatever. A few of the other lads have been done. I said, I want you to come to training with me. Drive my car home. I'm going to hit him with an egg on the way back. So going to the kitchen, Jackie's got a load of food left over. Lasagna.
In there?
Lovely. Yeah, Dusty was in there. Dusty, yeah. Cooking up the salad. So I said, Jackie, I need a bag of lasagna. I said, where are the eggs? She said, we haven't got any eggs. I said, well, bag me up some lasagna, right? She says, why? I said, I'll eat it when I get home. Kovskin's in the car, waiting outside. Sunny day in Leicester, driving. I've got the window open. I've got the lasagna bag ready to go, spinning it around. We've gone past this bus stop, right? At a responsible 28 miles an hour. And I've just lobbed this lasagna bag at these lads who were waiting to egg us on the way back to Cov, and the lasagna bag has exploded right on cue as it's hit the bus stop. There was probably 4 portions of lasagna. It's gone everywhere. Kovskin's won. Young lads in Leicester nil. You've just been lasagnaed, lads. You've just been lasagnaed. Anyway, when I went back to training, left my car in Leicester City Centre after a night out after training, my wheels had disappeared, so it might be 1-1. I don't really know. But anyway, triggered a nice memory there when I was around people and friends, and what a life I had in front of me back then.
Well, there would have been lasagna to celebrate in the Goodey household on the weekend, wouldn't there?
Wouldn't have just been lasagna. There'd have been steaks with fargoire on top, fries galore, truffle oil on it as well. Oh, mate. Truffle butter as well on the steak, just delicious. Yeah, wasps. We're back.
Nah, leave it. Move on. We're
back. We're back. It's a bit late.
You're back.
It's a bit late.
Bottom. What do you mean you're back?
Yeah, no, it's a hell of a game, actually. Obviously, Bath pushing those top 6 places. Their top 4 aspirations are gone now, I think. It's a real good game of rugby. Wasps carved up in the first half. 2 of the easiest run-ins ever ignored. Jacob Umunga back to his best ball. He talked about George Ford recently about on the front foot. Jacob Umunga taking the ball to the line. 2 of the tries that Wasps scored, one in the first half, Josh Bassett's try created by Jacob Umunga, just playing out of his own 22, making a half break, bit of help with a slight bounce off the ball, which stopped our friend of the show, Zack Mercer, from making the tackle. But play on, Jouet. And then the second half, the try where he's given it to out the back door, offload, side door. Then he gets off the deck, backs it up again, attacks the line, gets half through, and then another one to Le Bourgeois. Some people said it was forward, but wonderful bit of skill. So great for Wasps. Too little too late, though, for this season. They can only hope that with 5 games left, that gives them a massive amount of confidence to try and push and finish at the minute top 6 or top 8 if it doesn't get extended to that. So we shall see. But a good game of ruggers. Miles Reid for Bath as well. Hell of an athlete, hell of a player. And Muir on the wing for Bath. He is literally the size of a horse. One thing I noticed being at the London Irish against Harlequins game down pitch side. How big are some of the players now, Jim?
You ain't seen me in a year and a half, Andrew. You ain't seen me, mate.
Mate, there's me trying to lose a bit of timber, but my God, Ollie Hassel-Collins, the size of him, he's like a racehorse. And
nah, he's not big.
We can have a chat now with a man who's back in the Premiership after almost 6 years away in France. Newcastle's new signing, Carl Fearns, joins us. How are you, mate?
I'm great, yeah. I've actually turned up this time, so that's good. And the ink's dry, so it's definitely happening.
That's class, Fernsy. And we were going back and forth a little bit today on message. You're a bit dusty today. There was a team social with Newcastle. I was wondering, how does a team social go down in the Premiership with Dino? Me and Goodey played under Dino for a long time, and I just remember being in an armbar by him in the ABC lounge, face down, and absolutely loving it. Even though my shoulder was probably dislocated, but because it was Dino, I was loving it. But how are you a bit dusty today?
Well, no, it was actually a bit tame, but I actually lost my phone because we were doing a bit of wrestling, and I think that's how I've lost it. So, yeah. I lost my phone. That's why I had to reach out to you on my wife's phone. But I just got a message now. One of the lads picked it up for me, so that's all good. But yeah, it wasn't a hard one. It was just tame, like quiet one.
I love that. So you're saying it's tame, you were doing wrestling, and you've lost your phone. those three things don't add up. Next thing you know, Henson's been banged out.
Fernsy, remember you got history. You've got history on Nights Out, but we'll get onto that, I'm sure.
Yeah, no. Well, I've been accused by Gavin of dining out on that far too much, so let's not talk about it too much.
So obviously, how was it then? A bit of wrestling, a few beers, lost your phone. Talk us through the day. Was it fancy dress? Dino loves a bit of fancy dress.
Can you even do that now or not? I mean, what you allowed to do? This is the thing.
Yeah, well, we had to be on like only 6 to a table or 5 to a table. So yeah, that's why it couldn't really go off it. But a few hanging shirts and stuff like that, and no fancy dress though.
Yeah, so let's go back to your time in France. And I know there was talk, and it was all over social media about you going to Gloucester. You obviously stayed in France. There's very few success stories, right, of lads who go to play in France. I think you're one of them. Arguably, you could say that you went there in your prime. You're on the kind of cusp of playing for England as well. How was your time there? Because there's a few kind of horror stories, but you seem to be someone that's really enjoyed it there and did really well.
Yeah, I think when I left the Premiership, I had 10 years of doing the same things really, and I just wanted something really different. And as Goodey knows, it is different over there, and so yeah, I just really jumped into it, and I think that's probably why I went so well, because a lot of the foreign guys who go over there, they tend to want to complain about things and want to change things, whereas I just sort of went over there and dived straight into it and embraced everything about it, and and tried to give as much as I could, and then I got so much back from that.
Yeah, you certainly did. And I used to commentate on a lot of the top 14 games that you played in, and single-handedly in some games you were the star man for Lyon, sort of dragging them to victory with some monster carries, and you were getting the accolades, weren't you, in terms of Rugby Rama, the French newspaper over there, with their Star of the Week and all this stuff, which you won a fair few times. But tell us about your first day at Tell us about your first day at Lyon. Was it a bit of a car crash?
It was.
I didn't get off to the best start, did it?
Well, literally, if I hung around there after the first week I had, then the only way was up, because I crashed my car. Obviously, being on the wrong side of the car, your perception of where cars are is a bit off. So I've crashed into a parked car the first day, and then at the end of that week, we went on a pre-season camp, and as you do, you work hard during the week, and at the end of the week, you have a few drinks, and we had a few drinks in pretty much in like a forest in the middle of nowhere, and the lads set up a huge fire, and I've had too much to drink, got up and tripped over this branch and fell right in the middle of the fire.
Jeez.
Who
Yeah.
is this mad northern man? Who is this madman?
So I think I was that drunk, I didn't really notice I was in a fire. One of the boys picked me out of the fire, and then our fullback at the time was a doctor, and he said, right, just go and sit in the river. So I was like, right. So I was just sat in this river until the ambulance came, which took a while because we were in we're in the middle of nowhere in the forest. So, and I got through into the back of the ambulance. So I remember Pierre Mignoni looking at me saying, "Oh, Carl, you play next week." And I just, because I ended up having like two and a half months out, and I thought they potentially could rip my contract up then. So yeah, I was luckily they didn't, and I went on to be a big player for them.
In the ambulance, I bet they sprayed you. That ice stuff they come on when anyone's injured in France. They just come on, even if you've dislocated your kneecap, they'll come on and just spray you with all that ice stuff. So when you had your burns, that's probably what they did in the ambulance. And it's okay, Carl, you okay to play? Yeah, you're good.
And funny thing as well is that they did initiation and they drew a load of like cocks on my chest, and I woke up in the hospital in the middle of it. Wasn't even a room. I was just in a corridor with just a load of cocks on my chest.
I mean, you couldn't write that, could you? You absolutely couldn't write that.
And they wonder why he did so well in France. They're like, this lad is just taking. He's like a Superman. He's fell in the fire. He's an absolute Superman. But yeah, I mean, I would say I didn't watch as much as the top 14, but saw a few things. I know Goodey just mentioned it there. But the top 14 is hard in itself. But going down to Pro D2, and Rouen, is that how you say it? Rouen?
Rouen, yeah.
Rouen, yeah. Like, how was that? Because you talk about horror stories in France. What was it like in the second division? And I think Richard Hill, Goodey's a big fan of him, was your head coach there at the time.
I mean, well, I always got on with Hilly, and I respect him because he understood my situation. Living away because my family went back to England, and I was living there by myself, and I was there for about 9 months, and he sort of understood that, and was one of the guys who got behind me getting back to the Premiership. So as a bloke, I respect the man, and I've always gone with him.
But Ferns, some people listen to the podcast, they might be professional rugby players, or they might be thinking about going to France and play. I think you've answered it there, but obviously the top 14 is the place where people want to go. But going to Pro D2, which is a tough league to go and play. I don't know if they pay the players that well, but if there's an opportunity for lads that are playing in the Championship or in the Premiership or wherever that get an opportunity to go and play in Pro D2, would you tell them to take it?
Yeah, 100%. I'd say definitely take it because, like I said before, if you go there and you give, for me, you get a lot back, and there's a lot of growth within that. So if you go well, there are the people who love you for it, and will reimburse you for your efforts.
Yeah, certainly. Let's go back. We've got to ask you about the Gloucester situation, and obviously 2017. It seemed you'd signed the contract and then stayed in Lyon. All about the Euros or any other reason?
That was part of it. They offered me a very very good deal. But when I received that deal, I took a step back and actually looked at it, and it was like, right, well, I'm living in Lyon, an amazing city. My kids are in international school, loving it. All my family's loving it. I'm loving it. I'm playing the best rugby of my life. Why am I going back? And the only reason I was going back is to get a cap, and that isn't all in my that I'm not always in control of that. So I could do everything I could, and I'm not necessarily going to get that. So I didn't want to, I wanted to go with the black and white option that I had a lot more control over. And I'm not the type of guy to run away from a fight either. So I was well up for coming back and giving it Billy at the time a good run for his money to get into that team the way I was playing. But for me, it was just too big of a risk to turn down the deal I got offered. And I was actually proved right in the end, because I signed that deal. We played 10 games, won 10 games, top of the top 14 with Lyon, and I snapped my ACL. And I was out for 13 months. So, if I'd have gone back to that and that scenario happened in Gloucester, then, I'd be kicking myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the England situation there about trying to come back and get a cap, but you went on tour to South Africa back in 2012 when Stuart Lancaster was at the helm. What is it something, having had the career and being so close, that you think about a lot? It must be, when you think you were that close and you're obviously thinking about coming back. And you've probably still got an opportunity if things go well at Newcastle as well. But for you, no, you're not feeling it?
No. It's that boat sailed for me. I think I'm coming back now for different reasons. And to be honest, I'm coming back to push myself, because I could have just stayed over in France and probably more money and done about 30% of the work I'm going to come over here and do. But, I want to push myself and see if I can still run around with the young lads.
Do you think about the England stuff though, Fernsy? Because there's loads of discussions now about players that should be playing for England, or do you know what I mean? It's all about the coach in charge, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that. But have you parked that now that maybe, like you said, the ship has sailed? But is it something that let's be honest, we can say it, mate. If you're Scottish, mate, you've got 100 caps in front of you. Let's talk about it. Even with Hamish Watson there.
Well, I feel obviously I came up through all the English age groups, so it's something and as a kid growing up in England, I think that's what you always want to be like an England rugby player. So it's something I thought of, but I had that decision in my career, and spent a lot of time over it, and I made the right decision. So I don't really dwell on that, really.
Yeah, Jim grew up in England as well, wanting to be an England rugby player.
And the age group and stuff like that. But hey, never look back.
Well, it's interesting because in France, I think a lot of the kids growing up, they want to like win the bouclier with Toulouse or Toulon. But I think maybe when I was in England, a lot of the young kids growing up were like, well, I want to play for England. It's never like, I want to go and win the Premiership with the club. So I think that's probably because the club game, I feel in France is probably a lot bigger stage, really.
Yeah, it is. And let's talk about moving back to Newcastle then, because as you said, you could have stayed in France earning more money and doing less work. That sounds pretty good to me, to be fair, that mentality. But you want to come back, mix it with the youngsters and helping Newcastle out and show that Carl Fearns is still knocking about and a hell of a player. There's a bit of a backdrop story, isn't there, around coming back to Newcastle as well. Family are in the area as well, and playing for Dino is going to be good fun.
Yeah, well, my wife's from the area. She's a concert girl. So yeah, I was probably always gonna, even after rugby, end up in the northeast. So the fact that I've got an option of a top flight Premiership club in the area is perfect for me and the family.
And Dino as well. I mean, I imagine for a player like you, Dino, like you're one of his ideal profile of players, like hard, up north, durable, likes the contact in all facets of it. I mean, how was Dino when he tried to get you? Was it an easy conversation?
It was actually, we spoke a long time ago, just the start of my last year at Lyon, and then that was it for a while, and it just come out of the blue really when I was at Rouen. So because like going back to Rouen, I was lucky that I had the Rouen option because I didn't want to stop playing. So and obviously with COVID, a lot of the English clubs didn't want to be signing players when they're cutting the players they already have. So yeah, I was lucky that I kept on playing at Rouen, and obviously like Dean's watched a few of them games and thought I could still do a few bits. So yeah, I didn't really speak to him that much, to be honest. It was just through my agent.
Good stuff. Let's talk about the current situation. You're in back row number 8. There's a lot of chat week in, week out about who should and shouldn't be playing, who should be in the squad or whatever. What's your take on the whole number 8 position at the minute with England? Obviously, Billy Vunapola's playing. Al Samson's not in the squad. As a back rower, can you understand that? Alex Donbrandt in the mix as well. What's your take on it all?
I think it depends what Eddie wants. I think I think he obviously wants a number 8 who operates in the 15-metre channels and is someone who can carry in traffic and constantly make big impacts and win big collisions. So I can only assume maybe he thinks that Simmons is a bit more of an edge back rower and evasive and quick, and for me, I'd have put him in myself as well, Simmons in, because he's picked Billy. I think he only played against Ealing away, and then he's gone from Ealing away into an international. So for me, I think Simmons is obviously looking for opportunities, and like that, like his shot to get in, and then when that doesn't come, it's obviously even more frustrating for him.
Yeah, because we spoke a lot about friend of the show and former teammate of yours, Zack Mercer as well, and there's a lot of talk about how well he's playing at the age of 23. He's one of the best players in the Prem. He's heading over to Montpellier. I know you'll probably encourage him to go and do that and have that opportunity, and the way that he's playing. But he's another one, really, isn't he? Where you look at the way that he's playing, he just doesn't fit the mould. You think it's a good move for him going to Montpellier, or would you rather him seeing it out and try and push a bit more?
No, I think it's a brilliant move for him, because there's no better way to answer them question marks over his head than go to that league and have a around with the level of the caliber of back rowers over there. And if he does the same over there, then for me there's no question mark over his head. He should be in there. So definitely should push himself and go and prove. Hopefully he's got a point to prove over there and does the business.
Yeah, definitely. Right, Fernsey, before you go, we've got the headline question over us and people will kill us for not asking you. And we've tried to get Gavin Henson on the show, but the video clip that went viral when even social media, it still was a thing back then, but we did enjoy it. I don't know why we enjoyed it. I don't know why I did enjoy it, because I do like Gavin Henson as well. I've had a few interactions with him, but can you just give us a quick couple of lines on what happened and how you are now? And then hopefully that might fuel Gav's fire to bring him on in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, the lads went to a Thatcher's brewery. I didn't go to that, but they were egging up Gav on. They wanted to see Super Gav. So they were constantly egging him on. And then when Super Gav came out, they all wanted to put him back in the box. But
what's Super Gav? Fernsey, let's get a little bit of detail. I've seen Super Gav. My mate Kovskin's seen Super Gav. Can you just explain what Super Gav is? So it's basically it's like a Jimbo. So I've got James in the house, Jim now, and then Jimbo is like loose Jimbo, like Ibiza Jimbo. Is this the same thing with Super Gav?
Same thing, loose man. So basically, yeah, we're out, and then he'd already actually punched 4 of the other lads in the team before that. So we just sat him down. We're like, look, this is Bath. It's a small place. Everyone knows your business, but like, just chill out. And then he just stood up and said he'd knock me out. He said your missus wants to, get with me, which she probably does. and then he was like, "I'll knock you out." So then I didn't intend to knock him out with what I threw, but unfortunately it did.
And just before you go, can we get your back row for the Lions?
Yeah, well, Hamish Watson's got to be starting. Then probably Faletau. And I'm a bit underside on the other, but I'd go them 2.
I'm happy, Fernsey. That's it, mate. You said Hamish Watson. There's people saying that he arguably shouldn't be. Fernsey, you're a hard northerner. It was class to have you on, mate. That's all I'm saying.
Cheers, lads.
Well, we mentioned them with Carl there, but let's have a look ahead to the European semi-finals, lads. Toulouse, Bordeaux.
Only one winner for me. Comfortable win for Toulouse. The quality they've got. They smoked. Who did they smoke this weekend?
Racing,
yeah. They smoked Racing this weekend, and Racing had Zebo. I just want to bring to everyone's attention, if you get a chance, try and Google or go on Twitter.
It's on Twitter. It's on Twitter. I know what you're going to say. The Rip.
You watch Zebo. He gets the ball and he's eyeing up Anton Dupont, thinking he's little. I'm going to run over him, and he's looking at him, going, "I'm coming for you." Tries to run over him. Dupont strips him, rips him, then makes the break, scores a try.
Screaming, £100,000 a month, please, Toulouse, or whoever wants to pay me it.
Yeah. I can only see, Bordeaux are half decent. I don't want to give them no chance, but you're playing against Toulouse, at Toulouse, Untermax on fire again. They're a quality outfit. You've got the 2 best players in the world in Cheslin Colby and Anton Dupont at the minute. I can only see Toulouse winning that.
Hero, can't argue.
La Rochelle and Leinster.
Andrew's convinced me. He's got me into La Rochelle. Lavani Bottier, he told me you need to watch this lad. I was like, oh, my moustache, but unbelievable. So he
looks about 50 as well, Bottier. I love him.
Apparently, he is 55, but he's carrying on going. They've done his passport down to make him 21, so he's got years left in him. But I can't see Leinster not winning that. I'll be very surprised, but I've not seen enough of La Rochelle for me to look at them and say, right, you can beat one of the most decorated team in the Northern Hemisphere. I've not seen enough, but it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because when you're Leinster, you're playing against a French team, anything can happen. And it's at La Rochelle, so...
Thanks, Goodey. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Producer Tim. Thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube and head on over to Spotify, and we'll see you there.
Rugby pod.
Spotify pod.
I get the Spotify pod. See what we've done there now.
Nice, Goodey.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? It's good, isn't it?